Hey guys, I'm here to talk to you using Affinity Draw for creating dashboards. So this will apply to Adobe Illustrator or Adobe Photoshop, but primarily we're going to use Affinity Draw because that's what I've been using for the last year or so of creating dashboards. So let's start a new document. So Control New, we got to put some pixels. So 800, 480, that's our height and width. Are we having margins? Don't include margins. I mean, we can put margins in, so let's do 16, 16, 16, 16. All right, just so we have a nice clean slate. We're not going to have any rub or bleed, but that's fine. 72 TPI. We'll have an artboard. Make it RGB. 8-bit. That's fine. Margins, bleed. We're looking good. All right, great. So we have this nice little page. So what we're going to do is I'm going to open up. This is a car from uh, Ridge Racer 7. It is the Soldat. I've got the name right here. Meltfire, which is kind of a wannabe Ferrari kind of car. But what it has is it has a gauge here, more like a Lotus Esprit, which is like that Velgia gauge. So if I go over here, I have this nice Velgia gauge style. So kind of similar in that wheelhouse, that sort of European wheelhouse. This is a pretty basic gauge to design, so let's work with this first. So Velgia gauges, we have lots of those going on here. Um, Basically a lot of Ferrari, Italian cars, our old Lotuses. So we're kind of making a classic one here. So let's start with the bases. So we're going to make a center guide at 240, which is the halfway point of 480. And then we are going to go to 400. So that's our center. And let's make an oval tool. I'm hitting Control and Shift so it actually centered. And if you remember, we had we had that little area up top. So I'm going to make this about 420 by 420. Let's put a black background on this actually, just for clearance sake. So this is a rectangle. We have an artboard there. So let's make that black and put our gauge right here. Cool. So we're going to probably end up resizing this, but when I'm working on the tachometer, I like keep it in the center, simply because I have this nice center point, and then if I'm going to move it around, then we can figure out what the center points are. But right now, we're going to keep it in the center. We can also resize it at some point, but let's make this into a group first. So we're going to work on the daylight of this gauge. So let's make this like kind of like this 5656 or 4040. There you go. So I'm going to take our picture here. I'm going to copy this. We're going to paste it. So this is only for reference. But as you can see, we have this like nice bevel here, internal bevel. We have a light sort of going down here. We have this yellow line. We have a nice 0 to 11 thing here. So not bad, not bad. We can work with this. So we'll put this off screen, and then what we can do is we can sort of reference this as we go. I will also have the night view, which has this or yellow right here. So let's copy and let's paste. And I'll zoom out. just for some color references. Now, we don't have to make it exact, but because what we're going to do is we are going to have a different top end. So I personally think when you're making a Lotus Dash that you don't need to go over 10,000 RPM because the 2ZZ engine is going to crap its pants at, or at least the oil pump will, at over 10 grand. It's going to not be happy at 9. So let's keep, or even north of 8,500. So let's try to keep this same. It also gives us a lot of options for like keeping things in the sort of idea that we're going to not have a super high rev car. So let's start with this. We have this nice outline, we have this inner outline, and then we have some tick marks. So, and we're going to make this is a 270 degree range. So we are missing, so 360 minus like basically a 45 degree angle here, or 90 degree angle, excuse me. So let's start with so we can have this. I'm going to copy, control V, shrink it down, holding control, option, and shift. Now that's going to be command, shift, or whatever, but I'm going to assume we're all on PC, so I'm going to use those terms. So control, alt, and shift. Let's make that into, let's say like 380. 380. And then see how if I move this and I have my guide locks on, it lights up. So locked, move by whole pixel, snapping. So if I have snapping off, it's not going to snap to guides, but keep that snapping up top there. Let's put a stroke on it. Let's make it a 4-point stroke. Make it let's make it white. So we have a 380, and then let's make it about a, say this is about 350. Nope. Let's go down to 3. Maybe even less, 320. All right, that's looking good. Yeah, that looks good. Maybe actually lighten these. So I'm selecting both of them. Let's make this into a 3-point stroke. There you go. So let's keep it 4. All right, so we already have that going. We're going to keep these together. We're also going to get rid of the fill on this, just so when we change our ellipse color, if we want to change that, it's going to let us change to whatever. So let's go back to 4040. All right. One of the things you have to also realize is that the GARW display is not super contrasty, so you're going to get that sort of like color change. You have to be a little bit heavier on the colors than you think you are going, because you don't have this nice. You're not going to have that nice like indoorness on it. So make sure you think about when you're designing or making colors that you kind of like up the contrast a little bit more than you would. So this is our fun part. So we're going to make a cog. So let's go to get it so it's in there. I can pull that in. Let's make it, we want to have it a fill. So let's make it white, FFF, and then no line on it. So we can go pull this into 4 pixels here if we look at a grid, and then 4 pixels here so it's nice and straight. we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 12 lines, so 12 teeth. So how many lines are we going to have here? We're going to have at least 11. But remember, we're also losing a whole bunch here. So we have our 4 here, but we're not actually using this for a reference anymore. So let's transform this. This takes a little bit of experimentalness. So 0. Especially with something like this. Actually, we gotta increase our hole size to what helps for me is if I add a number. Let's make this a Helvetica. Standard. We're going to do 24. 36 point. Make the fill white again. Maybe a 30 point. Right in the center. And let's crank this up a little bit. Because we need something that has this and also has our both a line down here and a line up here. So that might require a little so one of the things we're going to do is we're going to cheat a little bit. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So this is where you can sort of cheat here. So I'm going to keep it like this, but I am going to take a line, and then I'm going to line here. Let's put this up top here. Make it white. And then now I have this nice, I'm getting to the point where I'm having all my lines again. So let's take our little cog here. So what do we want? We want a 2 in between. So that means we do a 26 up top. So let's do this again. Nope, not 26. We got to do that one more time. So 39. All right, and then let's look at this. Let's rotate this a little bit. We're not centered right now, so let's get it back in the center. Let's make sure our lines are correct. Let's make this 2 pixels. Because what it does when you rotate it or make more cog lines, it makes the lines thinner. So, all right, we can rotate this a little bit more. So it's nice and centered. Perfect. All right, so we have these two lines here for our 0 to 1 because we're a little off center here, which is okay. I think it's okay. Um, what we can do down here is we can make this into like a null, like kind of a no zone, which is just like, okay, from here to here, we don't have any lines. But let's get to that in a second. So it's kind of like we don't have another two lines, or it's just not, we don't have to worry about that. So let's make the numbers. So all right, so nice and even. Looks good. All right. Yeah, it looks pretty much on point. So let's start modifying the cogs now. So we have our numbers. Let's group all these together into group called, let's call it tack daytime, or no, tack lights off. Now we can go into our ellipse or our cogs. Let's copy paste them. We're going to keep these around just in case we need to make the cogs thicker, or if we need to like add more lines or just readjust them somehow. So I'm going to hit Control Enter, which makes them into an actual editable lines. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of our little short numbers that I said we were going to modify, and I'm going to delete them. Nope. So I got two sets of curves here, and I'm just going to delete all these. And I'm going to delete the ones in here. And I'm going to go into our curves. When you select them both at the same time, you also delete the other ones. And I'm going to hit the A key, delete this one, because those are our thicker ones. And we have a problem here. So as we can see, our cogs are a little off-center. So let's go and select all of them, and 400, 240. And 400, 240. Now, we're just that little bit off, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cheat a little bit. So let's make this 21, 321. Nope, still not quite there. 322. Okay, all right, we're good now. We just have to adjust this one down here. And that is also a bad stroke. It should not have that curve on it. So there you go. So look, getting really close now. Really close. So let's go back here. Take our, so we have this smudge room down here of how much space we will have for the 0 and 1. Nobody's going to be sitting here and arguing with us about like from here to here. But who knows? At some point. Anyways, let's copy and paste our ellipses again, and turn them off, the originals off, because we might need to resize, and doing the resize is going to be very painful if we don't. So I've got our cogs here. I'm going to write, so are these big lines? Nope, these are small lines. So small markers for PX markers. So if I turn those off, we don't have them on anymore. So let's have those back on. All right, let's start carving up our ellipses. So we can carve right here. And then carve right here. Delete that and delete. All right, and there we go. So I can delete. And we also have to go in our stroke and get rid of that overlay. So, and this is where things get kind of a little bit messy, but since we're luckily working on a pretty standard form and we got to turn our lock off here, our pixel lock, so we can just slide it up. Let's turn our guide lock off too. Just that little bit. There you go. If you notice I was editing the anchor there, it's not too hard. Make sure it's right on that line, and then I'm going to crop. Got to do the same thing with the stroke again. That one turned out perfect because I had it nice and lined up on that grid. So now I have to fix these guys because this one is not quite right there, but we can do that right here. Rotate a little bit. Pull that. Make sure it's nice and straight. Same thing with this one. I know it might look like really thick right now, but it won't look like this once we have it in export it to an actual PNG. Hooray, there we go. Let's save this. Nope. All right, there you go. Sold.fire. And cool. That looks great. But one thing we don't have is we don't have the red line. So let's put in a red line on this thing. We'll start with 8. And you notice we have all these other ones. So we're going to redo our markers. We're going to duplicate them. We're going to group. And then we're going to do these like white markers. And then we're going to make these into red markers. And oh, that's the line. I don't want to do the line. So we're going to make the fill. Let's make it a little bit more of an orangey red. We can use the eyedropper tool here. Let's just do this red right here. This kind of like orangey, off orangey color. That looks good. And then our 4 pixel markers, we'll also make those red. Cool. So one of the things we have to do is we go into our A tool at A, and we're going to just select all these, delete, go into our small markers, A tool, start with these, and then go all the way around. All right, and there we go. There's that. Now let's group. Those are already grouped. Let's go to our white markers. Hit A key and let's delete all those. And then 4-point markers, let's delete those. So we don't have any overlap. It's better that way. Now we have to do, let's duplicate. Let me group all these numbers all actually together too, so I can number. You might notice how I'm grouping everything together because it makes things a little easier to organize yourself. So let's do, we have our inner curve. Let's command copy paste. Hit the V key. Let's hit a K right around here. Delete. And then we can make that line, that orange. Delete the rest of this. I'm kind of a little off here, so we're going to just nudge it up here. And we just slightly move it a little bit. And then we're going to do the same with the other side here. Yep. Actually went off on the wrong one. Didn't actually duplicate this thing, so just undo. And let's tweak this again. So right around here. And just that little bit more curvature to match. All right, now one of the things we want to do is let's cut. Not here. Let's turn these off. Just so we don't have like any other overlap. I like to cut around here. You can be a little less accurate on the other side of these, but just makes it a little. So now we can just turn this on, and then we have our nice red line. Cool. So now we have our, well, we can move this whole thing around. And if I wanted to, I could resize it, like do whatever I want. So we have our nice image here, our nice gauge. And so up top, it's in yellow. So do you like the yellow? I like the yellow. And it's got this sort of like pink color. I've used this pink color on some other gauges. So let's keep it sort of like unified. So let's copy paste this, tack lights on. And then what we do is go in here. We have our number labels, 0 through here. Let's go get that nice color right here, FF000, and then make that line here, that color, our curves, yellow, and then our markers, soon to be yellow. I don't want to do that. That makes the and one thing I didn't do is my red line there. That we'll fix that in a second. Let's go 10, 9, 8. Drag our color. It is that sort of pinkish color. And we can do that for our lines here, as well as our red markers. That's pretty good already. So tack light on, tack light off. So what we'll do is we'll have when we're starting to program the QML, we can have when we have turned the parking lights on, or which is also turned on during the headlights on, we can switch from our sort of like white to a yellow color. So let's make these that sort of dark red, that orangey red. And so tack lights off, tack lights off. See that little like change of color here we have. Save. And let's make a needle. So it's like pretty small. It's rounded at the end. It's straight. So let's start with maybe a 40 by 40 oval ellipse. We don't want a stroke on it. We're going to make it a gradient. So you hit the G key, we make a linear gradient, and that's more of a spherical gradient. So elliptical, radial, there we go. So light sides up here, let's rotate it so it sort of has this 45-degree angle. Is this following a light pattern? Not really. I guess if there's light, you'd be around here-ish. So that's something we have to think about when we're doing the rest of this gauge. So let's make this like into a gray, dark gray, and then this one at the end. So you can actually edit this pretty well down here into sort of like a darker gray. But that's not quite it. So let's make it. It is darker gray. All right. One thing I might do is I might actually darken this a little bit. Our back ellipse. down to like 2C, 2C, 2C. Yeah, that's good. All right, so let's check that again. All right, that's good. So this has a little bit of a drop shadow on it right here. Let's add that drop shadow. Quick FX. Outer shadow. Light going like around here. Radius 3, 3. Let's yeah, that's not quite there yet. Let's make it. That's our blur radius, so it's not really super blurry. So let's. Yeah, it looks nice. Yeah, that works. So let's turn our guides back on. Guides off. Guides back on. And then what we're going to do is make our needle. So that goes what? Sort of halfway in there, right? So let's take a pen and then go right in the middle there. Stroke, and then that yellow. Yeah, it's roughly there. All right, so we have our nice line here. It's nice in the center. And then we can do expand stroke. That's going to give us this sort of like ability to round this off in the end, on the side here. So we don't want to have it. So let's go in the center and make it about 2. Rotate our anchors so it's nice and smooth. You always want to make sure these match so the angle looks right. This is really like killing the details, but having that kind of little extra details kind of makes it a little clearer. And then I'm going to kick this up 1 or 2 just to give it a little bit more visibility because we don't really have that high resolution. So think of it like this. We're dealing with something that you're going to be seeing maybe around this size. So having that little bit of clarity will help a lot. Let's go back to our layers and put this under our ellipse. And then what we can do is, what helps for me is that I change this. I have this enable transform origins. So I put this back in the center here. So now I can see right now it's at 0. So to get to here is going to be -90, but 90, and then this is 180. So we have to figure out how we're going to do our math in a little bit in the QML. But for now, we have something going on here. Just for fun, that's another X 1000 RPM. Let's add that on just for giggles. So tack lights on. Let's turn you off again. close you up. Get this. Thankfully, somebody was getting kind of lazy, so they just used Helvetica for this. Keep it centered. Times 1000 RPM. Centered. And let's make it maybe a little smaller, maybe 18. All right, that's comfortable. So let's copy this, paste, and so that's going to be that yellow again. All right, there you go. We're going to cheat in a little bit about building a shift light. So don't worry about that because we're going to basically make each one of these individual items into a layer item. So I think we're at a good splitting point. So I'm going to make another video about how I export all this and turn it into QML.